Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Adventure Pod, brought to you by the School of Media and Communications of Taylor's University. My name is Safia, and I am a student of Advertising and Brand Management program, and I will be your host for today. In this episode, we have a very honorable guest, a man with many years of experience and a long, interesting, and successful history in this line of work. We will be talking to him today about navigating career success in the media and advertising industry. I would like to welcome Mr. Andreas Vogiatzakis.
Thank you.
Say hi to our
Thank you.
audience.
Hi, everybody. It's really great to be here. Always good to be at Taylor's, and especially with mass comm folks. So it's a privilege. Thank you.
Mr.
Thank you for
Andreas,
having me.
thank you for taking the time to be here
Sure.
with us today.
Of course.
How are you feeling currently in the studio?
It's a beautiful day outside and inside. So, hey, when you're surrounded by awesome people, it's always good.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
So I'm sure our audience would like to get to know you a little bit. So could you give us a short introduction? Essentially, what is it that you do? And tell us, who is Andreas Vogiatzakis?
Ooh, right. An introduction. By the way, we didn't really prepare for this, so it's going to be off the cuff.
That's how we like it.
I'm a Greek kampung boy. I was born in a village with just about 300 people back in 1966. And the life journey unfolded in mysterious and precarious way. I didn't plan it that way. Fell in love with math, went to the math university there, which I quit right away. As soon as I got in, I fell in love with advertising. And I studied that in the States. And that journey brought me 97 in Asia. And it was just a twist of fate and events that brought that about. Didn't plan it, didn't expect it. So if in January of 1997 anybody would tell me that I would spend Christmas in Tokyo that year, I would think that they are really not in a good condition. And yet it did happen. So I landed in Japan in 97. The rest is history. I fell in love with Asia. I fell in love with Malaysia when I came here in 2006. All my life, my professional life up to 3 years ago was in media. So I was building, structuring, restructuring media agencies. I worked with an old brand, DMB&B, back in New York, where I started my career. In Japan, I was working with Publicis, the overall group. It was at that time with Leo Burnett, MediaVest, Starcom, which became Starcom MediaVest, with Dentsu also, as well as other Japanese agencies. I worked for White & Kennedy for a while, the motherland of Nike, as you know. And in Taiwan, I was working with WPP, Mindshare and Group M. We launched Group M there. And after that, I came to Malaysia. I was again in the advertising industry, 10 years with Omnicom Media. 3 years, I launched Havas Media here in Malaysia. And then I assumed the position of Group CEO at Star Media Group here in Malaysia. And for the last 3 years, I left the advertising world and I established AMV Plus, MV Plus Academy as well. And what I'm doing now is basically leadership programs that revolve all about self-awareness, discovering your power, strengths, how to build the leader in you, how do we communicate better. I'm also a master NLP practitioner and trainer. So I start my NLP, the neuro-linguistic programming programs next year. And it all revolves about building a better you. And I changed the path in my career because I thought that all these experiences that I had, and as you know, communications is a very dynamic industry. And I thought all that experience and all that life journey wisdom, I could put it to good use, add value, help transformation of people and companies. And it's a blessing journey, really. Advertising was my aftermath, my second love. And this ended up being the third, and it seems to be the best.
I
So
see.
yeah, that's me. Yeah.
See, only on the first question, and I think already so interesting. I think you have
you.
so many stories to tell, right? It is
Thank
a
you.
long history that you have had in the media and advertising industry,
Yeah.
as you have already brought
That
us
makes me
through.
feel old. Okay.
No, you are experienced with very
Yeah.
valuable knowledge.
Yeah, I'm joking.
So, what actually drew you in to start in the advertising and media industry?
Yeah, I remember that time very clearly. As I said, I fell in love with math when I was 12, and math became my North Star. And so for
Oh.
6 years, I was studying math, and I got into the university, and everybody was happy. And as soon as I got in, I realized that that was not really my true calling. I think math gave me an anchor that I needed when I was 12, and for the next 6 years. When I was 12, my dad died, and so everything, the whole world became upside down. And so math gave me the anchor. However, it didn't last. And so when I got into math school, I quit. I did my own thing, let my hair long, got a guitar, got a heavy metal band, and I was a rebel. And then I realized, okay, what do we do now? Searching. I knew that that wouldn't last. And I had an accident with a motorcycle at that time, stayed in bed for 3 months. And that was, by the way, I watched TV first time when I was 9 and a half. Before that,
Okay.
it didn't exist,
Oh, okay.
if you can imagine that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And so at that time in bed for 3 months, I was watching a lot of TV. And I thought, interesting how they make these ads. And I said, if in 15 seconds somebody will sell you something that you don't need, that's an interesting thing to do.
Definitely.
And I thought, my goodness, okay, what can I do? I love advertising. So that's it. That's where the spark started, and I didn't really know what. And when I got into the university, exploring it a bit, I realized that media was where my sweet spot was, because I loved the logic of math, but also it gave you the opportunity and ability to be creative on how you manage media. At that time, of course, internet didn't exist, mobile phones were not there, AI was not in the vocabulary, or AR. And so still it was up to you on how to creatively use the media in order to deliver the message. And the medium is part of the message. And I thought, wow, that's exactly what I want to do. Because I was not on the creative side where I can draw and come up with these really cool stuff, but I enjoyed that. And the rest is history. I just stayed in that line on media, on the advertising side, for practically, good Lord, 35 plus years.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And I started in New York, went to Greece, and I was doing the same thing with J. Walter Thompson at that time, part of WPP now. A little bit in Cyprus, and then in Asia, of course. So I thought, okay, this is an interesting rojak salad, you know what I mean? I worked for the French, the British, the Americans, the Japanese, the Chinese,
Oh
the
my God.
Malaysians, the Greeks. So, okay.
Countless now.
Yeah,
So
interesting.
it was something that caught your eye and you wanted to figure out, how does this work, right? You were fascinated.
Yeah,
I think I can get to the bottom of this, and
yeah,
how do I really break this down and understand how to maximize these advertising
yeah,
strategies,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So,
And the budget, and how do you reach your audience more appropriately? How do you understand their psyche? What do they do? And so I thought it's that marriage of art and science, right?
yes.
Because it is an art when it comes to creative and the storytelling and the copywriting, and yet you might have the best story, and if you don't have it at the right time, in the right medium, for the right audience, it's useless. And that's what I was finding fascinating. So I always thought, by the way, for those of you in the mass comm, and if you have studied the history of Leo Burnett, he used to call the media guys the lonely man, who sits in the back office, cranking numbers and media plans. And That was the notion back then, but I didn't like it. I thought, no, it's equally important with the creative process.
Yeah.
And I think that has evolved so much ever since, from just putting numbers on paper and structure your media plan. And now media is part of the strategy. In fact, sometimes that comes first, because you need to understand the audience before you start crafting whatever you want to
Yes.
design, right? And I saw the industry changing dramatically, of course, with how technology evolved and how that affected the way we structure and execute advertising campaigns. Programmatic didn't exist in our vocabulary when I arrived in Malaysia in 2006. That didn't exist. It just didn't exist.
Yeah.
And now programmatic is mainstream, you know. So it's all that art and science coming together to have the effect that we really want.
Yeah.
With a good dose of proper ethics, of course, because sometimes things get derailed a little bit.
I love how you put it. Sometimes I think people don't understand the complexity behind advertising work. So I think that's a beautiful explanation. So, from my understanding, you have lived in 5 different countries, and I'm sure that
Wow.
has given you so much experience professionally and also personally.
Yeah.
And so, what are the most valuable lessons that you have learned along the way that was able to shape your journey until
Yeah.
now?
That's a great question, Sophia. And how much time do we have?
Time is all yours. We
The,
would love to hear everything you have to say.
like I said, my journey was not planned. And I'm grateful to the universe and to the powers up there, whoever that might be, who took me through that path. And I didn't plan it, and therefore I also did not have a set of values that were very clear to me to guide me along the journey and when I was coming at the crossroads to take tough decisions. And now when I look back, I realize that there were many. I think my mom, when I left Greece, she told me something. She told me many things, and in the book that I wrote a few years back, she's actually the hero and all the stuff she was saying. And she said, when you go somewhere, talk about the place you are. Don't talk about the place you came from. And I understood that much later. I didn't understand what that really means. And it is about being grateful on where you are, being grateful with what you have. Shift your mindset to see the positive in things. Decide to be on the side of results, not on the side of excuses. And if you choose that, success will come. I didn't plan it that way because I screwed up many times. I can see that now. And I'll tell you a story about Taiwan. But it was all about being able to be resilient, being able to be flexible, being able to adapt. Adopt and adapt. Adopt new cultures, new ways of thinking, new mentalities. It's not your way or the highway. It's about understanding the other person's point of view. And when you are in different cultures, the Japanese are very different from the Taiwanese, very different from the Malaysians.
Yeah.
Malaysians alone are very different altogether. And
Yes.
and
true.
I love it. And so if you don't put your mindset to be in a growth mode, but it's fixed, you're not going to go far. So you have to be flexible, you have to adapt, and you have to be resilient. In fact, they say, and it's true, that the one with the highest flexibility controls the game and is more liked. And it's absolutely true. The moment, and by the way, I'm a stubborn one, and I won mine, but then I lost many times, and it hurts, and then you realize it, and then
you
you
learn.
learn the hard way. I tell all these things to my son, right? Don't know if he's going to watch this, but he will learn his way. And so it is about all of that. It is about finding your passion. And as I say, love it, change it, or leave it. In life, you don't have many options on anything that happens to you. So where do you find your passion? And the thing is that you can Google anything, literally, except that. The only thing you cannot Google, you cannot ask Siri, what is my passion?
What's within you?
Exactly. So you got to look within your heart and see what really drives you, what excites you, what's your ikigai, what gets you out of bed in the morning and say, yeah, I really want to do that. And sometimes people say, oh, but can that change? Yeah, of course. Values change, we change. At any given point in time, be clear with what you want. Do you know what you want? Do you know what you love? You know what really, really drives you. And when you know, give it all you have and give it everything. Don't ask about money. Don't ask about fame. Don't ask about these things. These things will come.
And go.
And go, right. But certainly they will be there for you. If you do what you love, the rest is history. And more and more and more and more. Here's an interesting story for you, and I learned as I went along the journey. I did fairly well in Japan after 5 years, and it was a success story altogether, with the failures and the learnings and all that, and there are plenty. And as it was overall a good story, I went to Taiwan to restructure Mindshare and later on launch Group M with good intentions, which I believe everybody has, yet my attitude was not necessarily, my behavior was not necessarily the best until I was lucky enough for that to happen in the very beginning, until a young chap from the company stopped me at the corridor one day and he said, boss, if you really want to lead us, you have to lead our heart first. And that took me back a little bit, and I'm like, okay, thank you. And I thought about that. And when I reflected on that, I thought, oh my goodness, it is about believing in being a family, and it is about really enabling them to do the things that they want. And it's not about what I want, and it's not about me. It's about the we. How do I flip the me? You know, if you flip the me, flip it around, it becomes we. And
yes.
how can I do that? And that was the biggest gift that anybody could have given me at that time, being a young native in Taiwan, in the company, I mean. And so I changed my behavior and I changed the attitude, and that turned everything around completely. So yeah, it's just lots. The list is endless, but I would encourage everybody to really find out what they really love. Sometimes they say, well, I don't know. That's okay. Just keep on searching. And whatever you do at the moment, give it your best.
Yeah.
And the answer will come by itself.
Yeah, I agree.
Because otherwise, what you're going to do, I'm going to sit in a chair and say, okay, let me see what my passion is and what I really love to do, and do nothing in the meantime.
Yes, I think
add value.
There has been a lot of times where I'm searching for answers.
Yeah.
And when I want them, they don't come.
Yeah.
But I just go on, and one day I get the answer, and I realize that this was the questions I was asking a while back.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Trust me, even now, after all this time, I still don't have answers to a million things, and I'm still searching. And I always have that inquisitive mind. And it's what I learned to do better is to trust myself and trust the universe, believe in me, and become happier, because that allows the windows and the doors inside your soul to be open and the answers to come in. And miraculously, you start seeing things differently. And one day you wake up and said, yeah, that was it right there. All the time I just couldn't see it. Now I can see.
Yeah.
And then it comes to you. It works like that always, I promise you, like a charm. You just have to believe that that's how it is.
Yeah. I think that's a really beautiful sharing.
Yeah.
And so, as you said, passions change, things change. So just like you had a big shift transitioning from the CEO of a major media group, and now you are a professional leadership coach.
Yeah.
So what, although those are very different things, what do you draw upon from your previous role that it helps you in your role today?
Great question. I think the number one, and it's easy to put it as number one, is that What I do now by the way, I don't like the term training. I end up using it because it's very common. To me, it's self-awareness and discovery journeys. And I'm not a trainer. I cannot train myself to save my life. It is about becoming a guide for people to find new ideas themselves. My focus is to help them shift their self-awareness. And I always say that's my only goal. If they shift their self-awareness 1 degree, then my job is done, because then they will decide what they want to do. Here's the difference in how my previous career and years in different places helped me. When I do that, you can open a manual, read about leadership, write a few slides, make a PowerPoint and all that, and go and conduct training on leadership, on managing change, on emotional intelligence. Google is an incredible source of information, right?
Yeah.
And you can write thousands of slides, and you can create programs that can last for a week to talk about whatever, crisis management. And so there are many who do that, and they're good.
Yeah.
Where I think, and from the feedback I get different, is that all that experience that I had with the good, the bad, and the ugly gets into what I do now as real. And so it's my programs and the journeys that I conduct are full of examples. I share stories, very personal. And so that takes the theory into practice, and it's very valuable. And when I look back, I'm so grateful that I screwed up so many times. I'm so grateful that I did good so many times, because if you don't do both, and it's impossible not to both, you don't have the yin and the yang, right? You don't have the juxtaposition. If you don't experience what's ugly, how do you know what's beautiful? And if you haven't really dealt with anger, how do you know what's calmness? And so when all of these experiences get into the work that I do now, and they bring it to life, so it's practical, it's not only theoretical. And because it's very personal, it makes it even more valuable. And it's also, like I said, I think I'm a rojak salad, right? So it's a little bit of everything, culturally, religiously, different points of view, languages, all of that. So I think that's the number one benefit of my previous career to what I do now. The second one is that I think when I look back, and as I do all these journeys and programs on leadership, self-awareness, emotional intelligence, and all that, it's very cathartic for me. So in a way, somebody might say, oh, selfish. But I get so much more. And I always tell the people that I do programs for, I said, I am 100% certain that at the end of the day, I'm going to walk out that door and I'm going to be a better person, because all of you hold a mirror to see myself. And by talking to you about leadership and then juxtapose that to real examples, it makes me think of what I was doing right. How could I have done it different? With no regret, with gratitude, and yet it's a lot of self-reflection for me. And as they say, you don't learn by doing, which is true. We only learn by reflecting on the doing. And so it makes me better. And that's the biggest blessing I could ever get. Make sense?
Yes. Yeah. I think it makes a lot of sense. I think so many things in this life. People can give you so much advice, but they will be just empty words until you really experienced it to understand the level of meaning behind those advices.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, so moving on to the next question. What are some common challenges that fresh graduates or entry-level executives you think they would face when they are just entering the advertising and media industry?
Yeah. That's a fantastic question. And